All right, welcome back. Our GMC Sierra tweet of the night comes from ESPN Stats and Info. They say Georgia's 17 points in the first quarter is most first quarter BCS CFP National Championship game history. They're just absolutely steamrolling TCU. Chris, all I could say to that is Ohio State must be kicking themselves. They had Georgia down. They could have been in this game. And, quite frankly, you look at it and you say to yourself, how bad Michigan would lose to Georgia if you look at it the other way. Your thoughts on this game so far, because it's a complete whitewash.
I don't know. Would Ohio State want to be in this game? Because they got steamrolled by Michigan, and TCU handed it to Michigan, although Michigan helped hand it away to TCU with a lot of turnovers. Georgia was clearly the best team in the country. It's fitting that TCU was going off as an all-time long shot to win this whole thing when you consider their preseason title odds. I think they were going off at 200-1. Which is, of course, roughly the score of this game right now, Bob. But Georgia's on a different level. I mean, they really are. Georgia's on a different level. I think Kirby Smart is building Alabama 2.0 there, and I actually think there's a chance that he could build it better than Nick Saban did. Oh, and if you want to get scared, go look at their schedule for next year. Go look at the fact that they just have another wave of unbelievable defensive players coming in, pretty much every one of whom seems to play ultra nasty, ultra intense. And then consider that whoever quarterbacks them won't be Bennett, who had an unbelievable college career. It'll just be somebody with 10 times the pedigree. Wonderful.
I'll say this about Sam Bennett. He was outstanding. And I think sometimes you get lost in the fact he's 25. It seemed like that was held against him in the Heisman voting. If you look at what he did all season long, I mean, it was fantastic. And you look in this game, again, with his legs, with his arm, the dude can play quarterback. So, well, you're right. It's a machine down there, and it could be Alabama 2.0. Real quick before we go to the Lions, two interesting things happened today during the Mike Tomlin press conference. Number one, he revealed that Brian Flores is a guy who is going to be in demand. There's no question. A team already called and asked permission. That team was Cleveland, which fired their defensive coordinator. I would say absolutely no to that. Do you think he'll be away from here? There's no comp pick when he leaves. And as also Matt Canada, I got the feeling that Tomlin made it sound like he was encouraged by it to the point where I don't think he'll make a change, which is something I was thinking opposite of going into this.
I mean, it seems like Kenny Pickett likes Canada. Najee Harris gave Canada a vote of confidence. The Tomlin quote on Canada is like one of those audio Rorschach tests where everybody can hear it and see his body language and infer something different. If you ask me today, I have a weird feeling, and I think we'll know by this time next week. I think I have a weird feeling and a bad feeling Canada's back. I just don't believe in his offense at this level. Mike Tomlin also intimated, Bob, that sort of they were running a conservative offense that Canada otherwise would not have wanted to run because of Mike Tomlin's insistence that that's what they do because they had too many young players. I just don't know if I buy that. I want a big-name guy with a real track record or an up-and-comer in that position. And as far as Brian Flores, you said you'd say no to that. I guess if you were in Flores' shoes, why? Because here's what I'll say. He's worked with bad owners before. Stephen Ross is probably just as bad, if not worse, than Jimmy Haslam. Kevin Stefanski should go into next year rightly on the hot seat. And if Flores is his defensive coordinator and they stumble and it's not maybe Flores' fault, then guess who's probably next in line to take that job? Brian Flores. And so I think he'd be more than happy to get back into the NFL head coaching ranks that way.
The only way I see it, though, if I'm Mike Tomlin, I don't want him going there in case he does get it right, in case they are better and Deshaun Watson gets rid of the rust and becomes what he was pre-suspension. But I think there'll be other opportunities down the road, and I really believe Brian Flores will be a head coach again, so he may have his choice of a lot of openings. We will see. Let's go out to the lines at 412-575-2600, beginning with Steve in Kittanning. Hello, Steve. How are you?
Good, Bob. I just wonder what you guys think about Matt Canada. Sounds like Tomlin might bring him back next year. I think they should get rid of him right off the bat, get somebody in there young, get like a Frank Reich.
He's not exactly old.
Yeah, but I think Frank Reich's older than him, actually.
Exactly. And it's interesting, Cliff Kingsbury got fired today after he signs a contract last. That's the thing about some of these coaching jobs that you see. A lot of guys think they have it right, and all of a sudden they go there and they're not exactly what. And I didn't necessarily understand why he got hired in the first place. He was a 20. What was his record in college?
He was a losing coach in college. He stunk. He had no business being an NFL head coach. You know what he's going to do? He's going to go to the Nick Saban car wash of coach rehabilitation. He'll end up on Alabama's staff somehow. I'm serious. He'll end up on Bama's staff.
I love the way you described that. That was very interesting. But
yeah,
it is.
It's the Nick Saban. It's the Nick Saban island of wayward coaches, where he goes in there. It's coach rehab. I mean, you laugh and I laugh too, because it is kind of funny because it happens so often. Bill O'Brien's done it. The guy that I think should be the NFL's coach of the year this year, in a landslide, Brian Dable,
right.
I think also did that too, Bob. So I think Kingsbury could end up there.
Let's go out to Twin in the Hill District. What's up, Twin? How you doing?
Hey, how you doing, Bob? Hey, Chris. I got two questions. I want to know about Cam Hayward's career. He probably got about 2 years left. I was thinking if they could land a guy from Georgia, Carter, to back up Cam for next few years, whatever so.
He's going to be gone, Twin. He's going to be gone in the first 5 or 7 picks. They don't have a chance at Jalen Carter, unfortunately.
I said that. I hope that they could address that middle of the field, because that linebacker position coverage is terrible.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and I think that's going to be a point of emphasis. Robert Spillane played every snap of the last 4 games, and that's to be commended. However, to me, he's more of a backup kind of guy. I know what he did, but that's only because Devin Bush couldn't do it. And that's going to turn out to be a bust, and that's going to turn out to be a position of need. They didn't get the kind of numbers they needed from the inside linebackers, and I think the middle of the field was a big problem. Why? They couldn't stop people when they had to, especially in pass coverage.
2 things here. I shuddered there at the thought of Spillane getting continual run because he's just an unbelievably limited player athletically. I know they love him because he learned a lot and he got a lot better, but he has a defined and very low ceiling. I didn't think Miles Jack was all that great. To Twin's point about just like wanting to shore up the middle, I'll say again, I do not want them to keep allocating very high picks in the draft on off-ball linebackers. You need to try to find somebody 2nd, 3rd, even 4th round, a tackling machine, a guy with good instincts. It's just not a position where I think you can have a huge impact that's worth taking a guy in the top 15. And I'll say this, I want them to just try to put Mark Robinson in as sort of the Vince Williams downhill thumper and hope they can find somebody to play next to him. I think that's their best option, Bob.
Yeah, to be clear, I didn't think they should draft anyone in the top 17 at that position. What I do think is they're going to have money to spend, and I think that's where you come up with a guy, not unlike what they did with Miles Jack, but only better maybe. Somebody who's really coming on, who may cost more money, stuff like that. In the meantime, they have a lot of unrestricted guys. They have guys who are going to need contracts. I think Cam Sutton would be high on my list to bring back. I really like DeMonte KZ too, what he's been able to do. Some of those guys in the secondary, they may not be shut down guys, but they're really, really serviceable, and they do a pretty good job.
I like KZ a lot. I like Sutton a lot. You can never have too many corners. I don't think bringing back Sutton necessarily precludes you, from drafting a corner, although in their case, I would not use the 17th pick on that position. I know it's going to be tempting for Tomlin because he loves bloodlines, and there's a relationship there to take Joey Porter Jr. I just think that you'd be better off taking a guy with your 2nd or 3rd pick in this draft at that position. It is one of need, but I wouldn't use the first pick you have on that spot.
No, to me that would be offensive line somewhere in there. Let's go out to Nancy in Tarentum. Nancy, thank you for joining us tonight.
Hi, Bob. Hi, Chris.
Hey.
Hey, I'd like to ask for you to comment on Jacksonville Jaguars. Do you think they're going to make it in the playoffs?
I do. I happen to think they're going to go out and they're going to beat the Chargers. I know, Chris, I think that's one of your teams, but I just think they're playing a really good version of defense right now that we hadn't seen from them early in the season. They played that team earlier, and if I'm not mistaken, they blew them out. I know that was then, this is now. But Trevor Lawrence, if he plays the way he's capable, I think is capable of getting his team on a roll, Chris.
The funny thing about the AFC is there's 3 powerhouse teams. Not Ravens, Bengals, Bills, Chiefs. Odds are that the winner of that conference comes from that threesome right now, and I would probably pick the Bengals still. Burrow's got unlimited swag. He's sitting there wearing a big white turtleneck saying, our window is for however long I play in the NFL because it's always open as long as I'm here. I love the swagger. I do. The interesting thing about the conference is 2 of the other teams I think are drawn dead, the Dolphins minus Tua and the Ravens. I just think the Ravens are trash. Even if Lamar comes back, he'll be rusty. But, Bob, I think this Jacksonville Chargers matchup matches 2 teams where the quarterbacks have the talent that if either one of them gets on anything close to a Joe Flacco in 2012 kind of role, they can absolutely carry a team all the way to a Super Bowl. However, Lawrence is still wildly inconsistent at times, and he was in that Titans game, so I'd actually bet on the Chargers to beat them.
Yeah, but I've seen up and down from Herbert too, and you're right. If they get hot, they get hot, and there's a lot of capable quarterbacks in this conference who can get hot. It starts Patrick Mahomes. You know what he's going to bring, and that spinning huddle. That
Ring around the rosy, pocket full of posies. I hope they get smoked. I hope they get smoked. That was too cutesy. This is getting old. I wish somebody would have lit him up.
It was interesting to me, though. I never saw anything like it, and I give Eric Bieniemy a lot of credit if it was his idea. We got to take a break. We'll come back and squeeze in more calls right here, as we do 7 nights a week on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call.